What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Debbie Rao YouTube channel. Back with a top 25 college football series, and we're back in the top 10 now. We've made it to the number 10 team, and ironically, this is Christian's team this year. This is his flag stamp, or whatever the hell you say, flag plant here. National title contenders, possibly number 10, Penn State Nittany Lions. They bring back a lot of pieces, especially on that offensive line, their running back room. And if their quarterback can step up, they will be competing there in the Big Ten and pushing for the playoffs. So we're going to be diving into the roster on the offense, defensive side, recruiting this year, and looking ahead at their schedule, what their over-unders are, and also their total. So we'll hit that like button while the intro is going, and we'll dive into Penn State. All right, so let's get into it. Last season, what we saw them go is 11-2. They looked good last year. James Franklin had them in a position where they could have competed for a Big Ten title. They had Sean Clifford starting, and I was happy I wasn't going to have to talk about Sean Clifford, but now I am because he got drafted by the Green Bay Packers. But we have him there. He's got Drew Aller coming back, Katron Allen, Nicholas Singleton, 11-2 last year. They finished the year really well, beating Utah in the Rose Bowl, 35-21. Really, the two losses that they had were expected, I guess. The Michigan loss, they got absolutely just rolled in the second half of that game. And then, Ohio State, they had chances to beat Ohio State. It always feels like they have chances to beat Ohio State, but they just don't put it through. So those are the only two games that they have. When you look at the schedule this year, I mean, those are the two games they're going to have to win again, right? So that's what we're talking about. So James Franklin has them in position. Like if they had the 12-team expanded playoff, they were in the playoff last year. So what can we expect from them this year? So let's take a look at their offense and most notably their offensive line.
Yes. So you can't talk about the Penn State offensive line without talking about Olu Fashanu, who was getting top 10 buzz before he decided to return to school. I think that was a good decision. I think, I get a lot of heat for this. There are some things that he needed to work on last year. And I think, some of the running back play, I think Katron Allen specifically kind of made him look a little better in the run game. But he's probably the best. I think he's probably the best tackle in the nation right now. And I think he's probably going to go top 5, top 6 next year. So when you have that on your left side, you're feeling pretty good about it. Sal Wormley played quite a bit last year. He was up and down. They did lose a lot of NFL talent from this offensive line as well. They lost Juice Scruggs, Tyler Warren, not Tyler Warren. Who was their right tackle last year? Goodness sakes. Bryce Effner was their right tackle. Caden Wallace played a good bit, but he was okay. So I think if you have questions about what Drew Aller can do, it's going to be because of this offensive line. But this is a talented offensive line. I feel pretty good about it. I think that they're going to take a step forward. Olu's going to anchor that left side. I think this is a good group.
Yeah, I love Olu. I've loved him. I think when we did a mock, in terms of the NFL draft, I thought he was top 10 in like November when I did it. So him coming back was huge for this team. And they're veterans. Like when you look at this group, they're very veteran on that offensive line, and you have to like that. As far as their offense goes, I mean, you have to love what they have coming out there. I'm a Drew Aller guy. I think, when we're talking about him, I think he can solidify himself this year if he steps up at that size, at that weight. He could be the quarterback one of his class. Like I think that's the potential of Drew Aller and the tools that he has. The running back room, it is an interesting conversation. Is this the best running back room in the Big Ten? Because you have Michigan with Donovan Edwards, Blake Corum, Travion Henderson, and Mayan Williams over there at Ohio State. So this could be it. Him, Singleton, and Allen, they had over 1,900 yards rushing last year. And the gap between Singleton and Allen is not as big as people think it is. Allen is a very, very good running back and an NFL prospect. When it comes to wide receiver room, I mean, they're very solid. I did a giant wide receiver depth chart video on this channel. You could go check that out. But overall, Keandre Lambert-Smith, Harrison Wallace, Dante Cephas transfer, Amari Evans, Malik McClain. They have guys. And then Theo Johnson kind of came on last year. We've been waiting for the Theo Johnson breakout for his entire career, and he came on a little bit last year. What do we think about this offense?
So the running back duo, I would put up there as the best in the Big Ten. And I think that is the driving force behind this offense. But they're not in a position like they were with Sean Clifford, where if they need a quarterback to go win you a game, they have a dude now. Drew Aller, you're right. I mean, I think he is the QB1 of that class at this point from everything we've seen. He does need to take some steps forward. I think, there were times where he was late. He didn't get a whole lot of play. So obviously the sample isn't huge here, but there were times where he was late and his arm talent is just insane. It kind of makes up for it if he's able to kind of get on time with these receivers. And I mentioned Tyler Warren because this tight end room is also probably the best in the Big Ten. Theo Johnson's a dude. Tyler Warren's a dude. They're expecting big things out of Jerry Cross. They've got Khalil Dinkins there. Like, this is a good group. I love Keandre Lambert-Smith. I think they like Harrison Wallace. They like Malik McClain, the transfer. So this is
Yeah.
one of the best skill groups in the Big Ten and potentially the nation.
Yeah, we've liked Keandre Lambert-Smith for a long time. If he can kind of break out there, Cephas looks like that guy that can pretty much do little things around the middle, yak, those type of areas. The G5, the Power 5 thing is something to note. But I do know they like Malik McClain. I think they like Malik McClain because he's not like anything really else in this offense, sitting at that 6'4" mark, can kind of give Aller that guy. Yeah, but I think Aller can be that dude. And when you're looking at it, I'm glad you brought up Jerry Cross. He's a sleeper to me. Like he was a good prospect coming in, but they've recruited well enough. They have a 2-year window, I feel like, right here for a national championship. And obviously it's going to be a little bit better, but you need the quarterback. If Aller hits with the talent around him in this youth, 2 years, they can have a national title kind of area where their defense isn't carrying around Sean Clifford anymore. I think that's the key here. Notable losses, Brenton Strange, I think from an NFL draft prospect perspective, like, yeah, when he got drafted there, Juice Scruggs, mention him. Sean Clifford, I put him on here just to kind of put him on here. Parker Washington, Mitchell Tinsley, but none of these guys, outside of Scruggs, and then, I like Strange as well, but I do think Theo can kind of step up and be that pass catching tight end. And Clifford's kind of a notable loss, but it's like, hey, good. We got Aller here now. Franklin's not going to be able to bring him back. Not a huge losses on this roster. They're not, and they filled holes where they needed to in that wide receiver room in the transfer portal.
Yeah, they did. And I think, the biggest losses from this group, I mean, I like Brenton Strange. I think he's a fantastic tight end. But in terms of importance to this offense, I think Parker Washington was one of those guys that it's like, if you need a big play, he was that guy.
Yeah.
They need one of those guys to step up and be that player for them. The list of guys that could do that is very, very long, like we just mentioned. But that if I had like one major concern about these losses, it'd be who's going to go get you a first down when it's 3rd and 12, and I think Lambert Smith is my favorite to do that, but Parker Washington was certainly that. And he's doing well in Jaguars camp, I guess.
I think, yeah, and I think it's Cephas. I think that's why they brought in Cephas. So you can be that possession guy. That is the guy that kind of watch there. As far as the recruits, they did a good job recruiting wise. Penn State's been crushing it. Top 15 class again. You're looking at Pennsylvania's being there, Virginia. They kind of go out and get these guys. They targeted that offensive line. They got 2 very good tackles. So you're looking at Alex Birchmeyer, Javon Williams from Pennsylvania reading out there, number 5 offensive tackle there. And again, they just went after the tackles. You can see that with Ona as well, 4-star kid. And then, you're going to get your tight ends. You're going to get your wide receivers. Carmelo Taylor's been up there, London Montgomery. But again, I think this just shows you how much talent is on that offensive side. They just targeted the offensive line, but skill position wise, they're pretty set. They don't necessarily need to go out there and just grab 5-star guys all the time. I think Carmelo Taylor is an underrated guy. He's probably have to put on some weight sitting at 160. But overall, just a solid class.
Yeah, I like Jackson Smollett a little bit as well. Not that he would ever challenge Drew Aller or anything like that in the next 2 years, but good player to pick up right now. This is a great class. Penn State has done a really good job recruiting for a very long time, and I don't think that changed this offseason.
And I will say, I'm glad you brought up Jackson. That quarterback room's a little, I don't want to say shaky after Drew, but Bo is there, Prabilla, and then you have Jackson there, really kind of probably going to have to step in. So if something was going on Aller, I think that this team would take a huge hit. Obviously, that's not saying much, but maybe having Jackson in there, those guys, just because of that depth. As far as like key transfers coming in, I really like Malik McClain. I thought, he was kind of underutilized at Florida State. He was someone that's there. I think the big surprise is Trey Potts. Transferring into this running back room. So as far as where that was a 3-star running back out of Minnesota, I mean, it's a good depth piece. I love it for Penn State. I don't like it for Trey Potts because I'm like, I wish you could have been a starter somewhere. But I do understand it from a Penn State perspective. Hey, go get more guys. And then Dante Cephas, who we've been talking about from Kent State.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really understand Trey Potts going there, but he's a good player. Like if something, I think that's the difference though. If something were to happen to Aller, you're right. I think that they're in trouble. But if something happens to one of those running backs, I think that they've got some dudes that could fill in. So, yeah, this is a good transfer group. They didn't hit it hard on either side of the ball, but I think they filled their needs quite well.
Yeah, and Potts, production wise, not amazing. Yeah, 500 yards, 400 yards the last
Yeah.
couple years. But hey, maybe they'll just line up three backs in the backfield like they're known to do a little bit, and they're just kind of go heavy. And I could see that. I mean, stopping those three guys is going to be incredibly difficult in the Big Ten. And in offenses, like that just gives them a lot of different ways to kind of be utilized in that offense. Impact players to me, though, I mean, it really surrounds like two guys we were talking about, Nicholas Singleton, who, Singleton to me, the one area that I would say everything that Singleton does is bounces out to the outside. We haven't seen him be able to really kind of run inside. There's been moments where we've seen that. So does he take that next step in development? Remember, these are young kids. They can Nicholas kind of step up, be that 3-down guy, catch passes, right? And I think maybe that's where Potts comes in, where Allen and Singleton haven't really necessarily shown that they could do it. I think they can. They have that skill set. But those guys, surrounding them, and then you have Kendra Lambert-Smith, maybe that breakout. But the guy on the screen is the guy that they got to know. If he plays up to that Heisman level that we think he can, that literally that's his ceiling, then Penn State's going to go further away. And they're going to upset some people. They're going to get in that Ohio State, Michigan area and maybe beat one of those.
Yeah. Well, reports out of spring indicated that Singleton is taking that next step, and it's mostly due to working with Katron Allen. They're
Yeah.
such different running backs, but Katron is one of those nuanced guys that sees holes opening up before they're there. He anticipates those things, and he's teaching Nicholas. And I think Singleton is also doing the same for Katron. So that's my favorite running back room by a lot. And then I expect big things from Drew Aller. I think we're past the days of the Penn State quarterback is the thing holding them back. I think we're into a new phase where this is a legitimate, top 3 to 5 offense.
Yeah, and we can't get out of here without mentioning Caden Sanders. He has a chance. Wide receiver, he's a true freshman last year, redshirt freshman coming in as a slot guy. But Caden Sanders has that ability, that playmaking, big play. I know Christian really liked him last year coming in to the year. If Caden can step up for this offense, takes it to a whole nother level. Like I don't think they've had a receiver of his prospect, of his ability. I mean, I like Jahan Dotson. I like some of these guys that have come out of there, but Caden, to his athleticism, he could be that next guy.
Yeah, and I mean he's put on some weight. I think the reports on that are that he is, kind of gotten in the playbook. He had to really adjust to college life, and it sounds like he's there. So if he's able to produce too, I mean, this wide receiver room is pretty crazy at that point.
Yeah, it would be the best wide receiver room we've seen in Penn State for a long time, with the best quarterback that we've seen in Penn State for a long time. So that goes to optimism, but. Let's talk about the defense. So we're looking at the defense here. Manny Diaz is there, and what we've seen from Manny Diaz is this high pressure defense approach, and they really adapted pretty well to that. When you're looking at that, he brings it a lot. Other guys on the Abdul Carter, these other guys that kind of have stepped up. They have lost some pieces. We'll talk about that secondary, but overall, you have some returners here, and you have Manny Diaz in this system. They've really kind of rallied behind his high pressure defensive kind of approach.
Yeah, this is a fantastic defense. This is actually, I can rave about the offense for hours, but this defense is actually the reason I think that they're going to take that next step and be an actual national title contender, Big Ten contender. Chop Robinson is kind of where it's at. This kid is absolutely insane. He generates a ton of pressures. He's one of the best pass rushers in the nation right now. If he takes a step forward, I don't even know what that looks like. Then we're talking about maybe a top 5 draft pick. But behind him, all of these guys got on the field a ton last year, and most of them played really well. Abdul Carter is another one of my favorites. I do like Curtis Jacobs quite a bit. And then I will say, stepping in for Joey Porter Jr. is going to be tough. That was a very impactful corner. He could kind of take down an entire side of the field. If one of these corners is able to step up and do that, this is a terrifying defense to play.
No, it's absolutely terrifying. Like on both sides. Like just as a Michigan fan, spoiler alert, I'd be nervous about this game in terms of what they have out there, because they can get after the quarterback, and they can stop the run. Like, and they can really do everything that you like. And Manny has done a great job there. He's really kind of transformed that defense, and you have to love that. Notable losses. Joey Porter Jr. I think is the big one, right? Was a first round pick technically, but I like Joey. I think that he kind of stepped up there. Jair Brown, who I really liked as the safety position. Jonathan Sutherland, Edge Kintali, like those guys to me are like, hey, big losses there. Also, they lost defensive end Smith Vilbert this year for an injury, so he's going to miss the entire 2023 season. That just happened just recently, so that's something to note as well.
Yeah. Porter Jr., my favorite thing about him right now is he's fighting with George Pickens all the time because they're going against each other in
He's
practice.
a
Now,
dog, man.
he
Porter's a
is.
dog.
Yeah, and going against someone like Pickens, the
Yeah.
tempers flare a little bit. But yeah, Jair Brown, also a fantastic player. Like those are notable, but because Penn State does have foresight, they get these other guys on the field quite a bit, and they have
Yeah.
that opportunity with their schedule. So it's not like any of these guys stepping in for them haven't played football in a while. Which some programs you see that. Penn State's really good at making sure that's not the case.
Yeah, no, 100%, and I think that's something to say with Manny Diaz because of the high pressure and what they try to do. They have to get subs. Like it's just one of those things. They have
Yeah.
to rotate these guys, which in turn helps that depth. And I will say this, we've done this a lot. We've been doing this for a lot of teams this time. I did not see a ton of transfers out from the defensive side. They stayed. They love this team and they love this coach. And you could tell that there's something brewing there in terms of the chemistry there. There wasn't a ton of guys that left. Like there was obviously some, but there is not a ton of big opt-out guys where you're like, oh my gosh, they left that defense. No, they stayed to play there. And in the recruiting trail, like you can tell, and again, I thought they did a lot better job on the defensive side. Obviously, the tackles are big. King Mack is a guy that really stepped up, in terms of recruiting style. 4-star kid, 5'11", 180. Out there at Florida, so one of their big Florida recruits. Only got 2 on this cycle. Tony Rojas, linebacker, really good kid, man. 6'1", 200. He could step in right away. He's a top 10 player at his position. They really needed him. Dakari Nelson. So you just go through this list. Really, really good guys. Jamil Lyons is another one. The edge, obviously, looking at him, 4-star, 6'4", 255, stepping in there. But they're recruiting to a level that they need to recruit to win the college football playoff.
Yeah. This defense needs safeties. That is a very, very key piece to this offense this
Well, they
defense
got
being good.
4 or
I
5
know.
in this class.
And that's where I was going with that is they know how to recruit them too. And
Yeah.
they traditionally put those guys into the NFL. So they've got a good track record. And I think that that's just going to continue. That Penn State, we have never, ever had an issue with their recruiting. It's been their maybe the coaching and their on-field performance at times, but from a recruiting standpoint, this is one of the best programs in the nation right now.
And we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about, coaching a little bit and kind of get into there. I will say this, Tamari Robinson, safety, 6'4", 225. That's a big ass safety. Like when we're thinking of like what he's going to project at, like it'll be interesting to see where some of these guys fit. But I think to me, I have confidence in Manny Diaz being able to, plug them in where they need to go and place them and where that goes from. As far as transfer goes, there's not a lot to talk about here. They had like the 57th ranked transfer portal, which is interesting because of all the teams that we've talked about in the top 25, they've all been pretty close to top 25 transfer portal as well. And Penn State didn't go do that. Penn State was one of those opt-out ones like, hey, we're not going to go there. Davian Collins from Mississippi State, he's coming in. And then Alonzo Ford maybe would be that guy, ODU guy, Old Dominion, 6'3", 290, filler piece, just going to get on that defensive line.
Yeah, I think this speaks to, you mentioned how not many players transferred out. That just doesn't leave a lot of scholarship opportunities for other people to transfer in. But that, once again, speaks to Manny Diaz and how he's able to get these guys on the field and make sure that they want to stay, which in turn, I talk about consistency, continuity from year to year. When you have all of the same guys returning to your defense outside of really these 2 players, you are in very, very good shape.
100%. So let's get into the impact players here. I think the big one is Abdul Carter, like I mentioned at the open, outside linebacker. Last year's a true freshman. He had 6.5 sacks. So that's the guy. You think of these guys, you think of Micah Parsons, some of these other guys that have played there. Like Abdul can be that guy. Chop Robinson is on there. Kalen King, they really like Kalen King. And last year, he finished the Big Ten leader at 21 passes defended. So that's a guy that we talk about being able to step up. And then they're edge guys, right? So you have Chop, you have Isaac, you have those guys in there. Who do you think, who stands out to you or someone that's not even on this list maybe?
No, it's Chop. Chop Robinson. Yeah, this kid is insane. 34 pressures last year. They didn't turn into sacks a whole lot, but that's something that Penn State edge rushers often feel, right? I think of Adafe Owe back in the day. Like that was a kid that he's juiced up with traits. He gets a lot of pressure. He can get to the quarterback, and maybe the production doesn't always get there. But there's opportunities that like he created some of those sacks for Abdul Carter. And so I think that is just going to open up. This is going to be an aggressive defense. If they're able to get those corners to play, some press, make sure they, hold it down on the secondary. this defensive line should be pretty nuts. Adisa Isaac is another good piece to them. This defense, to me, like I said, this is the driving force behind me thinking that they're actual national title contenders.
Yeah, because of this defense and how it looks. So let's check out their schedule. Let's talk about it. So they got West Virginia, Delaware, first 2 games. You can't lose to West Virginia. West Virginia, you better not lose to them. Illinois, obviously tough. When you get in the Big Ten, these games are going to be a little bit tougher. Iowa's going to have a better offense, so you got to take care of business there. Then you got Northwestern, UMass. You better not lose to either of those schools. Those are the 2 worst. And then there's the big game. It's Ohio State. And if we're going to talk about it, I will say this, and I have Penn State fans yell at me all the time. They say James Franklin's a great coach. I think James Franklin is a great coach until he plays Ohio State. And something happens with Ohio State where he puckers up. And for whatever the case may be, whether it's scheme or whether it's play calling or whatever, they've had plenty of opportunities in their schedule, in their seasons to beat Ohio State multiple times. I think there was I forget what game it was. I remember watching, it was like 4th and 2 and he didn't go for it. And then he did go for it and there was a bad play call, whatever the case may be. Like for some reason, Franklin can't get out of his head. But that's the big one. At Ohio State, can you go in there? We're talking about that defensive line going after those quarterbacks. At that point, it seems like Ohio State's probably going to have a starter in place, ready to go. So you're not talking about getting them early. So who is it going to be, right? When we're thinking of like, hey, can they get after that quarterback? Whoever is going to be starting for them at that point, McCord or Brown. Then if they get past that, Indiana, Maryland, that you're going to win those 2 games. Then you got Michigan, right? Like it's really just 2 games here on this schedule. I think they can win both of those, but they could easily lose both of those too, depending on how that team comes out.
Yeah, the big one's Ohio State. You're right. I also worry a little bit about that at Maryland right before Michigan. The look ahead. Yeah, look ahead trap game. And Maryland's got a decent program. I think Maryland's going to be a little more competitive than some project this year, in terms of Big Ten play at least. But going to Ohio State, that's going to be a primetime game. The thing about this Ohio State team, though, not to get off Penn State, is we have witnessed Ryan Day pucker up now twice against conference rivals. And so I wonder when that's going to catch up and kind of seep into the Penn State matchup as well. It being at Ohio State, that's the concern, right? But I do think that if they take care of business there, they roll right through the rest of their schedule. I mean, there's potential for this team to be undefeated. And that's the Michigan game is still going to be tough because I think Michigan should be the favorite in the Big Ten, just based on what they've done in the last 2 years. But this is a fantastic football team that could easily go out there and just rout most of these teams.
Yeah, I was going to say, how dare you say they're just going to roll right through Michigan? I don't think they're going to do that. But, playing Michigan at home, probably a whiteout game, like that's a very winnable game there. And the case may be, hey, you got to go out there and beat those 2 teams. No, I agree. So 9.5 is the number. I will take an over on that. I think that if they lose either, the only 2 games they're going to lose is Michigan and Ohio State, where I do think they split one of those. I really do. I think Penn State's ready to take that next leap and be there. And I think, I don't want to say on paper, but overall, the system, continuity, the pieces they have, even offensively, I would argue that they're better than Ohio State on paper. Very close. It's close, but I think they can definitely win that matchup.
They've got the better quarterback.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, that's not, I think it's going to be Kyle McCord that plays, but I still would take Drew Aller just straight up over McCord. And so I think when you get those matchups where it's kind of a toss-up in your head, you just take the better quarterback and say, I look at what Trevor Lawrence did as a freshman or the first time he got on the field, and I think, we could be seeing something like that from Drew Aller this year. And I think that this is going to be an exciting year to be a Penn State fan for sure. I hope they're in the college football playoff. That's what I hope.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at with them. I think Penn State is, if it's not Michigan, I hope it's Penn State. Screw Ohio State. We only want Ohio State in there. But I think for me, it's just I want to see Drew Aller, and I want to see him compete, and he could have that Trevor Lawrence rise. And I think that that is definitely in the realm of possibility and in the range of outcomes for him because of how good of a prospect he has been. But I'm going to go back to it. It's up to James Franklin. This is the most important, these next 2 years, this year and next year, are the most important, years under his coaching career, because I think he has the talent to get there. Now the coaching needs to put him through that top. Don't be conservative. But even if he is a little conservative, they have one of the best running back rooms in the freaking country. So that's just the other thing to know. But that's Penn State. So appreciate you guys. Hit that like and subscribe button. What do you guys think? Do you think Penn State can get over that hump, win both those games against Michigan, Ohio State, not have the trap game against Maryland since Talia Tagovailoa is like everybody's favorite quarterback to pick right now, is the best quarterback in the Big Ten. Can they kind of take care of business there? Or, are they going to be another, hey, we lost 2 games, we go 11-2, and we're happy winning the Rose Bowl or whatever the case may be. So appreciate you guys. Let us know in the comments what you guys think. We'll check you guys next time.